I've got a business trip this weekend. So I'm counting on you to take care of the house and my mother, all right? What? Again? It's one thing during the weekdays, but not having you here on the weekends is a problem. Do you have any idea how hard it is? What can I say? It's work. I can't do anything about it, right? I know, but still. Then why don't you work instead? If you do that, I'll take care of everything at home. Can you earn as much as I do? That's impossible. See? Then please don't complain. I'm counting on you. This is a conversation between my husband John and I before our problems began. Looking back, it seems strange that he was always away on business trips, even on weekends. This is a story that happened because of my husband's selfish actions. My husband and I live with my mother-in-law, Mary. We started living together a few years ago. My mother-in-law has dementia. Her symptoms are still mild, but she is in a state that requires care. At first, I thought she was a bit forgetful, but it seems it got worse bit by bit over the years. She became a bit irritable, and when we went to the hospital, she was diagnosed with dementia. My father-in-law, who had a chronic illness, passed away amidst all this. After that, Mary never got over her loss and locked herself in her room. After discussing what to do about Mary with the relatives, it was decided that my husband, as the eldest son, would take care of her. When I decided to marry him, I was prepared for the day this responsibility would come. Before her dementia, Mary was very bright and energetic. She gave birth to my husband when she was young, so she is quite a bit younger than my own parents. She was strict with my husband since he was young, and he was a bit scared of her. But she always got along well with me. She was always kind to me, always on my side. I admired and loved her very much. When I had an argument with John, I would immediately report it to Mary, and she would scold my husband for me. Seeing my John's troubled face was always amusing. I believe Mary and I got along much better than most. However, as I mentioned earlier, since my father-in-law passed away, she has lost her energy and no longer scolds my husband like before. Or rather, she hardly talks at all. Taking advantage of this, my husband's attitude began to gradually change. As if taking revenge for the past, he became more and more arrogant. Looking back, even the discussion with the relatives may have been John's strategy. Initially, my sister-in-law and her husband, who lived near my parents-in-law, were supposed to take care of Mary, but John stopped them. I'm the eldest son, so I'll take care of her, he insisted without yielding. It seemed like John was scared of Mary, so I wondered why he insisted on taking care of her, given that we didn't live close to her. Of course, there may have been a sense of duty because he was the eldest son, but I didn't feel that way for some reason. Maybe this is what you call intuition. And as soon as we started living together, my premonition proved right. Taking advantage of Mary's condition, he said and did whatever he wanted. He started to speak his mind to Mary he had once feared. Seeing Mary unable to understand quickly due to dementia, my husband did not hesitate to complain. It got to the point where I had to stop him every time. And then that day came. After a 3-day business trip, my husband returned home. As usual, I went to take out the laundry from his bag and found unfamiliar underwear. I always buy his underwear, so it was strange to see something I didn't recognize. They were men's underwear, so there was no mistake they were his. But I wondered and decided to confront him. Hey, what happened to the underwear you took with you? Huh, what underwear? I've never seen this underwear before. Did you buy it yourself? Yeah, I bought it there because I needed it urgently. Why did you buy it? What happened to the underwear you took with you? There was a hole in it, so I threw it away. It was old, right? A hole? How? Those were pretty new. Oh, really? Maybe it wasn't made very well? I see. After seeing my husband's suspicious behavior, I felt doubtful, but I didn't press any further. For a moment, a thought crossed my mind, but I decided not to worry about it. I just hoped that nothing else would happen. However, a few days later, another incident occurred. My husband returned from another business trip. I went to greet him at the entrance. "Welcome back. You must be tired." "No." "Yeah." He was looking down and seemed out of spirits. "What's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" As I asked this, he replied, "No, it's not that. There's something important I need to tell you." He looked like he had made up his mind about something. Mary was already asleep. I sat down in the living room to listen to what my husband had to say. Then I was shocked by the words that came out of his mouth. "I want a divorce." I was at a loss for words at the sudden request. "Sorry to surprise you. Please, let's get divorced." "What? Why?" "To be honest, I've fallen in love with someone else. We've been having an affair for a while." "I'm sorry." That's when I realized that the situation with the underwear was exactly what I had suspected. "So you've been deceiving me all this time. I can't believe this. I understand you feel that way. There's more. It's hard to say, but she's pregnant." "What? Pregnant?" I couldn't help but exclaim in a loud voice. I never thought this would happen. I just found out about the pregnancy yesterday. It seems she's already 6 months pregnant. I still can't believe it myself, but there's no choice but to have the baby. I've decided to be the father of the child, so I'm asking for a divorce, please. Fine, I'll give you a divorce. I can't imagine being with you after hearing this. Sorry, and thank you. Make sure you tell your mother yourself." After that, John fell silent. "What?" With an awkward look, my husband said, "It's about my mother. I wanted to ask if you could take care of her." "What? Do you know what you're asking me?" "I know I'm being selfish. But it's impossible for her to handle child rearing and caregiving. You understand, right? How can you even say such things and ask for a divorce? Will you at least think about it? I can't believe you. If you want a divorce, you need to be prepared to take on everything. I get it. I'll figure something out." Saying this, John locked himself in his room. I was so overwhelmed that I didn't want to think about anything else and decided to take a bath and go to bed. When I woke up the next morning, something felt strange. I looked around the room and felt some things were missing. I had a bad feeling and rushed to my husband's room. He was already gone, and his belongings were missing. I sat down, realizing I had been deceived. I found divorce papers, already filled out by John, laying on his bed. Next to it, there was a note that read, "I'm sorry." I was left alone in our house with Mary. As I pondered what to do next, the hatred within me began to get bigger. I will never forgive. I decided that I would take revenge. I took action immediately. I went to a detective agency to gather evidence of my husband's infidelity. Since I had not yet submitted the divorce application, we were still legally married. He probably hadn't thought about that. I quickly found out where my husband was. As expected, he was at his lover's house. And just as quickly, I gathered evidence of the affair. The evidence was ready, collected in half the time I had requested for the investigation. First, I talked to Mary about this. Although I thought she wouldn't understand, I explained it to her slowly so that she could comprehend. She had a lifeless expression for so long, but as I explained, her expression changed. She responded clearly enough that I was convinced she was back to her former self. She knew the woman was a colleague of her son's company and decided to send the evidence of the affair to his company. "This completes the first act of revenge," Mary said with a smile. A few days later, my husband called me. "Yes, what is it?" I responded calmly. "You're crazy for collecting evidence of my affair and sending it to my company," he raged over the phone. "I never thought you would do something like this," he said. "You've got it all wrong. It wasn't me who sent it," I replied. "Then who did it? Who else has a motive to do such a thing?" "Just me. It was your abandoned mother. Don't think this is the end," I said and hung up. The phone kept ringing persistently, but I ignored it. Then Mary came and said, "Now, let's move on to the next counterattack." She went back into her room and seemed to be making a call. A few hours later, the doorbell rang. It was a woman on the intercom, my husband's mistress. It seemed that Mary had called her over. I stayed in my room, leaving the mistress to deal with Mary. I couldn't hear anything from the living room, so I waited until the mistress had left to hear the story from Mary. She had been unaware of the Mary's condition. "If you marry my son, you'll have to take care of me. Are you prepared for that? I think it will be in the near future. And I'll probably be unable to go to the bathroom by myself. Will you still marry my son?" Confused, the mistress didn't seem to know how to respond. "Now, what will happen next?" Mary seemed very amused. It was as if her dementia had been cured. And who would have thought that Mary's actions would lead to such an unexpected outcome? The next day, the doorbell rang. I looked out the peephole and saw John. "What is it?" "I was wrong. I want to talk." I let him in to talk. Then, unexpectedly, he told me something shocking. I broke up with my mistress. The child wasn't mine. As it turned out, the mistress had multiple partners, and she intended to pass the child off as belonging to my husband, who was the most well-off and secure. But after speaking directly with my mother-in-law and fearing the responsibility, she confessed the truth to my husband. "I've reflected a lot. Can we start over? You don't have to answer right now. The answer is clear. I want you to leave. And about the divorce application, you didn't fill it out completely. Now that I have evidence of infidelity, I will definitely claim compensation, so please take care of that," I said with a smile as I handed him the divorce papers. "What? Please, have mercy. You need to take responsibility for your actions." After saying that, I kicked him out of the house. After he left, Mary returned home from the hospital. Her daughter, who had accompanied her to the hospital, was also there. So I reported the recent events to them again. "The jerk got what he deserves," exclaimed my sister-in-law angrily. "I am truly grateful to you, Judy. You took care of me. I am so sorry for having such a worthless son. From now on, my daughter will take care of me, so you go ahead and enjoy your second life." I could see tears welling up Mary's eyes. The next day, Mary moved to her daughter's house. When I asked the sister-in-law about Mary's condition, she told me that although the dementia was somewhat slowed by medication, of course, it had not been cured. Later on, my divorce was finalized successfully, and I received a proper settlement for compensation. John's affair partner resigned from her job after Mary sent the evidence of the affair to the company. It seemed that she felt uncomfortable staying there. The husband submitted a transfer request by himself. Apparently, he ended up with a lower position and a significant reduction in income. As for me, Taking care of Mary has inspired me to want to help others in similar situations. I am currently studying for a caregiver's certification for my new dream. I am thankful to Mary for making me feel this way. I truly wish for her to live a long life by slowing down the progression of dementia as much as possible.